if I'm laying in my casket, what's the one thing that I wish I would have done? I was like, I wish I would have tried. I wish I would have tried.
Yeah.
Or contributed, even if it never made a Netflix special, at least I tried and see if it was there.
Welcome to the Yahtzee Podcast. I'm your host, Justin McRoberts. This is part 2 of my interview with visual artist and storyteller Scott Erickson. If you haven't had the chance to check out part 1, it's not necessary to hear it first, but I'd suggest doing so. It might be helpful, and it's a great conversation. The second half of our conversation turns more specifically to the role of art in personal life, as well as communal and religious life. We also dig a bit into the difficulty of spoken language versus the freedom of visual expression and look, as best we can, into the future. Check it out. One of the things that you do that I don't want to necessarily say like sets you apart, but it is a kind of distinctive of.
I'm a 4, so you're an
Enneagram 4. You are. Here's a way in which you're special.
Tell me how I'm unique.
Yeah, okay.
One of a kind.
I will. Mentor and friend of mine named Ken Hefner talks about the if you are able as an artist to coach and inform and teach an audience, then it becomes part of your responsibility as an artist to do that.
What? He said that?
Yeah.
Dang.
That part of
wow.
And that what it feels more like, and this is one of those like subconscious things that happens with artists, is like the people who talk between songs or the people who explain their pieces are cheapening their work. That really pure art is, I put it on the table, you get it or you don't get it, and you just have your experience and that's it. You actually go some lengths, whether it's videos online or the way you communicate up front or the way you engage with people. You go some lengths to try to meet people a little closer where they are in their engagement with art and do some teaching. Do you ever feel like you're cheapening what you do, or does it feel like it's part of your art?
No,
No to which?
No, I don't feel like it's cheapening it. I won't always give answers that people want. Like, what does this mean? Be like, I won't. There are times when I won't answer it in a pragmatic.
You won't answer the questions being asked.
Yeah.
But you also won't crap on someone for asking.
Yeah, I won't crap on somebody for asking, because I understand that they're like, I'm interested in this. I was just new to me. Tell me, can you lead me? Yeah, I view myself as a guide. Do you
feel like it's part of your responsibility?
It's not one that I like consciously take on. Or
really?
Yeah.
You do it really well naturally.
For sure. Well, I had to take a break. I had to step back. My wife said to me a couple years ago, she said, you labeled yourself a painter, and you are, but I think you're a lot more than that. And I think that label has held you back.
That's fascinating.
And I said, oh, yeah. Well, for one, I just call myself Scott the Painter because there's a lot of Scott Ericksons out there. So just to get some land, I needed to carve out a space. Like, oh, okay. But, with all our URLs and handles that we need to have now.
Yes. True story.
So I thought about like, well, what am I trying to get to? And I realized what's the most satisfying for me is creating moments of solidarity with an audience. That's the most gratifying. That's the thing I'm always trying to get to. Yeah. Is like, moments
of solidarity.
Moments of solidarity. I want to weave a story or an image or some kind of narrative, and there be a moment where the blanket of aloneness is removed, and you go, oh, I am really connected to all these people.
That's the way Seth Godin talks about art, right? Seth Godin talks about like art is the creation of anything that forms a bond between people, that creates connection.
Yeah.
If you're making anything that creates connection between people, or even between a person and themselves, you are making art.
Yeah, that's great. I would like to be in his team. So
yeah,
great.
Right? There you go.
Yeah. So I do it as a function. I do that because I know that's my goal. So I want people to feel like I want you to, I understand the word people like, I shouldn't have to explain it to you.
Or just don't want to.
But a lot of times there's a guy named Alain de Botton, and he started this thing called School of Life. and he has a really interesting idea about art galleries. Because like when you go to a museum or a gallery, and you, especially when you get out of like Impressionism and out of Cubism and stuff, and then things become a lot more abstract expressionist, and then they're all responses to something, but they don't
pieces
put
themselves.
The pieces themselves are a response to something that's going on, but unless you know the context of it, it's all a mystery. You see pieces and you're like, I think I'm supposed to get this because it's an art, but you don't know that painting was made in response out of this art movement.
The way Rothko becomes suddenly clear to people if
yeah, like I told that story yesterday. I was
tell the story real quick.
Okay, so
because Rothko, for folks who don't get Rothko, start with like John Rothko's pieces. Mark Rothko's pieces are like, if you come up against he's one of my favorites, but if you come up against Rothko, what's that look like?
Yeah, Rothko is a exceptionally large, bigger than a human being painting, and usually it's a one wash of color with maybe a rough edged, like if it's a rectangle, there's like a rough edge square that's a different shade inside of it, or maybe two of them.
It's field of color,
really huge, and most people go, I could make that.
Yeah, that's the kind of art people say that about. Like, how is this guy famous? But
I watched a documentary on him, and he was like, after World War II, we saw photograph, film footage after film footage of dead bodies, massive death, and he was like, there's no reason to ever try to paint a figure anymore.
A human figure,
like
the recognizable human figure.
Yeah, he's like, there's nothing we can accomplish by doing that because of what we've seen. So he went like the complete opposite direction. And so his response was out of death and destruction and going, I'm going to try to move you with like an opposite set of visuals, which is very simplistic and just these color fields and this thing.
You don't get that when you come up against Rothko.
No, there's no introduction to that.
No, you go to the Phillips Gallery in DC, and you're in the Rothko room, and you just see it, and you're engaging with it.
Yeah. And I went to, Holly and I, my wife Holly and I were in Philly, and we went to the gallery there. There's tons of famous works. Marcel Duchamp's Nude Descending Staircase is there, which is a fantastic painting. A bunch of Marcel Duchamp. Just famous stuff that you learned in art school.
Right.
And
I did not.
There's this one exhibit of Renoir paintings, and they were great. And after 3 hours of walking around, I felt like I was looking at people who were trying to figure out why they were there. And I was like, this is still not as cool as going to a rock show. And the Renoirs were great, but I was like, what would make this better if I walked in and Renoir was there, and he'd go, hey, let me tell you where all these paintings came from. And I got to walk around. He's like, this is my friend Stacy, who, French Stacy. Oh, Stacy. This is Stacy. And, we used to date, or she's just a neighbor, and I painted her in her, like if I knew where
it doesn't strip mystery though. I mean, like, cause isn't the purest art thing? It's like, well, there's the mystery, and that's what's kind of cool about it is the mystery.
I think there can be that, but I also don't think like it needs to be just one answer. Like my friend Jeremy, who's Jeremy Mangan, fantastic painter, check him out. He said, when you go around, whatever you're looking for when you're going and looking at art, that's probably what you should be making. So when you look at stuff and you're like, I'm so disappointed. Why? Because I want it to tell more of a story. Oh, that's probably what you should do. That's what you should do. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's just what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, because for me, I'm like, these are all artifacts of human beings. Art isn't a peer like Star Trek, The Replicator, computer, Earl Grey, hot. It doesn't just show up. It's an artifact. Art comes from people. So these are extensions of human beings. I want to hear the human story of why they're making it. Out of all the stupid things to do on a spinning rock in space, it's like, I'm gonna take these elements. I'm gonna make something out of like my life.
You want to know
expression? Why the fuck? Why? Like, tell me why.
It enhances for
what
you.
What are you trying to get to?
It enhances and deepens your experience of an artwork to have its human context.
Yeah. Like all we have is time, and you're going to spend in the timeline of existence, your very small life, you're going to spend time making something for what? Like, I want to get into that conversation.
The why of it.
And there can be, and the simple answer could be because it's beautiful. Great. It's a great answer. I wanted to make something beautiful.
But if there's more to that,
like there's ways of making art. I tell people, I'm like, painting, you can approach painting as like, I want to know this medium and I want to figure out how to move paint.
Right.
And that's perfectly legitimate. Mm-hmm. That's not what I'm trying to accomplish with making work. There's maybe parts of me, I just had a friend challenge me. He's like, you don't experiment enough. You don't play enough. And you're like, you're right.
But at the time being, you're a little bit more focused and intentional.
Because I was like, I want to accomplish this thing. But there's like a
creating
9% longing in me that's just like, some days I just want to make some big fucking paintings, and just for the joy of making big paintings and not caring. But then I'd have to hit reality and be like, well, where do I store these? Because I did a big art show one time and I made 15 huge paintings and I sold one, and then the rest sat in my garage for 9 months. And then I just like yard saled them because I was
I'll take one.
They're gone.
Okay.
Because I was like, I don't have room for this. And that I was like, oh, it's just consequences to making all that. Anyways, yeah, I am interested in being a bridge or being a guide or not being an aloof elitist and just going.
Well, it's like you said earlier, you are creating moments of solidarity. And in doing so, or like for you, is developing that like kind of visual lexicon for people, having iconography, having imagery that helps them understand their own faith process. That it's not, you're not necessarily providing just a service with visuals. You're understanding the role of visuals in people's lives. Yeah. And it's coming out of you. It also happens to, and you're trying to be responsible to the way in which that actually does like meet people right where they are. You're trying to be the artist in the gallery that says, hey, you're getting punched in the face with all this imagery anyways. Yeah. Let me be the one artist in the room who's going to say, come over here and I'm going to walk you through some of what I'm doing that might help you navigate your next few steps.
Yeah. And I also, people ask me, who are your art inspirations? My first answer is Mike Birbiglia, who's a comedian.
Yeah.
And like, I started recognizing like what is so satisfying. It's like long form storytelling, comedy, mystery, unexpectedness. So I started going, oh, this is what my next kind of performance show was like my own dream died. Like, I put my kids to sleep one night and I walked out of the room and I just started crying, and I was like, I don't know what this is. And I went and sat in that little tiny bathroom on the toilet for an hour and I just wept. And my wife came in and she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just making space for this. I don't know what it is. And after I thought about it for a while, I was like, oh, a dream is dying. And that dream is, I realized now I always wished I was a performer. And now, at the time I was like, now I'm 39. And I don't know if anybody gives a shit about a 39-year-old gonna try from scratch to become a performer. Not that I don't have a history of like speaking and doing things like that. But I was like,
but you were Scott the painter.
But yeah, I'm Scott the painter, not Scott the performer, not Scott the storyteller. Mike Birbiglia knew at 18 he wanted to be a comedian, and he spent the last 20 years doing that. And now I'm like, I got 3 kids.
And culturally, you're in a moment where it's like you're a white male Christian, and like this is not your moment culturally. This is like, you're not.
No, but I was like, and this is part of the show, but it's like, if I'm laying in my casket, what's the one thing that I wish I would have done? I was like, I wish I would have tried. I wish I would have tried.
Yeah.
Or contributed, even if it never made a Netflix special, at least I tried and see if it was there. And so I was like, fuck, I got to start trying. And so, and the hard thing is like, when you start something new, you're not good at it. Your taste and your skill, glass, are not the same. So I was like, I have to publicly not be good as a 41-year-old.
Yeah.
to get better.
You have to make bad art to make better art.
When you go see a 17-year-old playing some songs, you're like, you'll get there one day. That's bravo. Keep going.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. But you know what I'm saying? You see somebody, but you're like, hey, in 10 years, I'm excited to see you at 27.
Yeah.
But when you see a 41-year-old doing something bad,
and there's a difference if you try.
If you try. If you see a 41-year-old trying something, you're like, that's embarrassing. You should fucking have that together.
Really depends on the 41-year-old and if they're trying.
And I know that I don't suck. It's not that I'm starting from the beginning, but as like, I've never been trained in theater. I've never been trained as a writer. Like I'm just going like, what's interesting to me, and so far it's resonated with people. No, there are people who've been like, you could improve this and this, but nobody's been like, stop what you're doing. Like, hit me, like there hasn't been a great Simon Cowell who's like, you're rubbish. Like just go home and do something else. People are like, no, this resonates with me.
Yeah.
So I know it's where I want to go. So anyways, that's for me is like, I've had to let go of labels and narratives. Like you're a painter, you're a visual artist. And like right now people are like, are you going to show in galleries? I'm like, I'm not interested in making paintings. That's not where I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is performance pieces, art performance pieces, and books. Those are the things. So
you're interested in art forms, coming back again to that same theme, that are more intentionally designed and angled to actually creating that connection, fostering that connection, and that solidarity.
Yes. And like why I like our book, Prayer 40 Days of Practice, available February 5th.
February 5th.
At all bookstores and booksellers. Is that our book is not just, it's an experience.
Yeah.
And there's something about like, can you write something that becomes an experience of solidarity? Like that's the kind of things that I'm interested in, like image and words and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Which is what kind of books are, but sometimes you feel like you read a book and you're like, I learned some stuff. Mm-hmm. But then there's another thing when you like experience a book, you have like an experience with the book.
And you don't learn something, but you become something else.
Yeah. You're like, what did you learn in that book? You're like, I don't know if I remember all the elements, but I feel like I'm
can't
different.
Articulate it, but I'm different.
I'm different out of it. Like reading The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Somebody's like, did you like the book? I was like, I didn't like reading it at all, but I'm glad I did. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it was not fun.
Yeah.
But it transformed me. Anyways, that's the power of art in the ways that one of the powers of art.
One of the things I'll do regularly with podcast guests, because you do your own practice of lexicon visually. I'm more of a words person. I'm in the old world. I'm in the old dying world of words, Scott. Like what you do is no longer effective. But this is an odd thing to say at this point to some degree, but like. I don't think we need more words. Like it's part of why, again, I like what we've done with the 40 Days book. It's like, it's not a whole lot of words, and that can be confusing for folks, but I don't think we need more words. I do think we need better words, and I think we need to pay more attention to the words we use. Really specifically, like you were saying with visuals, you're surrounded by visual form.
Yeah.
You just aren't paying attention. Yeah. I think the same thing is true words, and I think most of the time it's not even that like we're just being verbose, although we are. So am I. It's that I'm being verbose because I'm not paying attention. I don't just like talking a lot. I just keep talking because I'm being careless.
Yeah. Yes.
So the words that we do use, the things that are important to us, I like to dig into to my guests. Like, here are some words that seem pretty central to what you're doing and who you are. What do they mean to you? How do you hear that? So this is my own little practice of lexicon here. So what I'm going to do over the next couple of minutes here is I'm going to throw a couple words at you.
Okay.
And you don't have. It's not a matter of like define the word. What is religion? But I'm going to say religion, and then like, what does that draw out of you? I say the word religion. It's in your psychology and in your soul somewhere. Like, where does that live? You might have a definition. You might just have a story. But like, this is how we kind of develop the lexicon.
Yeah.
So I'll begin with that. I'm going to say the word, and then you can talk for a moment about it.
Okay.
Religion.
Yeah, the formational practice of what you think is the best parts about life, or important about life to remember. It's the formational practice of remembering. Yeah.
Art.
The artifact of human lives.
Faith.
The implementing of remembered experience.
Story.
The narrative, story. The narratives we make about the chaotic and meaningless existence we live in.
That's
the hopeful narrative.
Oh, that's it right there. Much better.
The hopeful narrative in the face of the chaotic and meaningless existence we find ourselves in.
Talk about church.
I am wearing all black, by the way.
You are. I know. Very good. I avoided it. That's normally me. Talk about church.
Church is... I mean, I think church is... At least the ideal of what it's supposed to be is so scandalous. Because what it's saying is it should be the place where when we gather, everyone's equal. Whether you're rich or poor, black or white, any Michael Jackson song. Male.
Does he do a rich or poor thing?
I don't know.
I don't think he does.
He's black. I was just thinking black and white.
Yeah.
It's white. It's something in the yeah. Why I stick with it is because I think it's an aspect of the divine that we can't experience by ourselves. I can go watch sunsets every day, but there's a part of the divine incarnation I won't know unless I sit
with other people.
That's
where you go.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. That's why I stick. That's why I don't.
You show up to a Sunday service. As you're talking about the form.
Yeah.
You show up to a Sunday service because there are people there.
Yeah. Yes, because. Well, and I think there's something good about ritual. I think there's something good about teaching, about sharing, about prayers and what we hope for. But yeah, I think like Mike McHargue, also known as Science Mike, somebody asked him, is there any scientific evidence for God? And he said, no, there's not. There's no scientific evidence for God. But I don't see God giving us any evidence like that. He's like, what I see is a God saying, when you see a stranger who's been beaten up, you pick them up, you take care of them, you take them to a hotel and pay for their, care. And it's in that activity. That's where I'm at. That's when you experience me. It's not like go to this mountain and there's evidence up there. It's in the actual practice of loving, practice of forgiving, that then we experience the divine.
And insofar as you do that, you're doing that with others.
So church has to be. So church is part of that practice. It's in the being with people, listening to them, honoring them, respecting them, crying, mourning, being. It's in the activity together is when we experience the divine in that activity together. And then I think it also confronts. It doesn't because it's embraced power and all that stuff, but it should confront the narratives of our bogus world system, which says you are how much bank account you have, you are what your power is. The church should be a place where
that should be its impact.
Yeah, that should be its impact, is where we all are equal here, or we all have something to learn from each other, or it should be that neutralizing place.
We've touched on this just a tad, but I want you to talk about success.
Well, my favorite quote about success is from Tony Robbins.
Is it really?
Which is, success is not an outward destination, it's an inward destination.
What row were you sitting in when you heard that?
That's my headphones.
Okay.
But I don't claim to have health in that idea. I really butt up. I probably have unhealthy thought patterns
about success.
Yeah. I'll say that is a goal mark for me to go, hey, I'll get in my head and feel very shitty about myself, and my wife will be like, well, what do you want? You know, or like, what
would success look like?
Yeah. And then when I have to name it, it like deflates all the anxiety. And I was like, oh, I just haven't been naming this, you know?
Interesting.
So like we've talked a bit about this, but I'm coming out of a summer that is very slow in work. My bank account's on fumes right now. So that validator isn't there. When things are slamming and stuff's coming in, I'm like, I am validated in my work. so that becomes like, oh, okay. A lot of my validation is, there's at least an aspect of it that's in finances.
Yeah.
Which we do all the time. It's like that person has so much money, you know, like these are the people.
That's a way to measure success.
Yeah, it's a way to measure success, an easy measure. We don't go, yeah, but are they depressed? Do they hate themselves? Are they divorced? You know, like,
right.
You know,
until they are, but we still be like, well, they still kept going, you know, for what? Like, what is it? It's good.
You know, it's the whole Steve Jobs thing. It's like, what a great man. It's like, according to who? Like his friends and family? Because they were like, it's complicated. For those of us who benefited from the products he made. Oh, cool. Yeah. Great guy.
Thank you, Steve.
I don't know. Like, I just think if your kids hate you, you weren't successful. No matter what you made. But, so yeah, the thing that I don't have is there's no goal that I'm trying to accomplish. I'm not like, I will be successful when this happens.
Like you don't have a measure, like you don't have like a target.
No. I think where I've more landed is I really enjoy the rhythm of being a professional artist. If I can keep doing that rhythm, I'm being successful.
To keep trying.
Yeah. The fact that this, like I have this, you can't see behind me, but I have all this artwork and I have this thrift store painting that says I wrote "I get to" on it.
Yeah.
And that's just a reminder. It
sits right over your main workstation.
Yeah, because my friend Chase, I think I was bitching about finance or something. And he's like, yeah, but you get to. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're doing it. It might not be paying a lot right now, but you get to. And there's a lot of people who would love to be.
If you are in the water and you are not drowning.
Yeah, so I just kind of go, well, I get to.
Yeah.
I should think more into that though. Like, I do have like career goals I'd like to accomplish. Like, I'd like to keep trying to develop shows.
Yeah.
There's a kind of creator I would like to be. So
let's do that last then. So let's talk about, and we'll land the plane here. One of my key moments, and I've told this story a couple times, but like really, really early on, I like when I didn't know anything, but Frank Tate, who ran Fragmental Walk Records, took me to Nashville. It was before my first record was done. And I was in a room with a bunch of music buyers and radio people, and I was going to play a song. And, you know, the idea is, for the most part, you go in there and you impress everybody. And they're like, oh, we want to put your records on our shelves and play music on our radio station. And so the label execs will all get up in front of their artists and be like, this is so-and-so, and she's going to revolutionize rock and roll, and the world's going to change, and the sky will open, and Jesus is coming back at track 3, right around there.
That's amazing.
That's a great record. And
I've never experienced anything like that artistic, like in my creative career.
No.
Where somebody's like, maybe, I don't know. Anyways, sorry.
Someone set you up like that? Well, neither have I. So because Frank gets up and he says... So, and this is happening, like, I'm like 6th or 7th artist in this lineup, and Frank gets up and he says, so this is Justin McRoberts, and he's the artist we'll be focusing on this year. First record's coming out. And there are 200 people in the room or so. And he goes, so I'll be honest, he's not that great right now. I'm standing behind him holding a guitar. Yeah. I'll be honest, he's not that great right now. And you can see, you know, I can watch the room kind of, what? And he says, but here's what I'm banking on. I think 15 years from now, this is 1998.
Yeah.
He said, I think 15 years from now, he'll still he'll not only will he still be here and making music, talk about keep trying.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really good music.
Yeah.
So I'm investing in the long term, and I'm asking you to do the same thing, and then Justin McRobertson, I had to play the song. I was like, well, this is going to suck. This is a song you will not like. He just told you that, and he's the one paying for it. But what it did for me is it allowed my successes and failures to be less definitive. Like that was like, this is what it's 50, what, yeah, but what about 15 years from now? Like, okay, so like the first record did okay, second record did a little bit better, but it was never like, here's my moment.
Yeah.
Because the guy who was bankrolling the whole thing said, I'm not thinking about this record. I'm not even thinking about the next record. I'm thinking about who you are 15 years from now.
Yeah.
So 15 years from now, what do you look like as a person, dad, husband, artist, community member? What's the culture around you look like? What's 15 years look like from now? Or what do you hope for? Even if you can't see, what do you want? You
spent all that, a really amazing amount of time setting this all up for something I've not thought about.
Good.
So you want me to just make it up right now?
I do. Yeah.
God, personally, I'd like to feel more comfortable in my own skin. Because that's still a struggle for me.
That's psychological or physical. That's the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah. Yeah. Like part of frustration working out today, and I've told this to Holly a couple days ago, had a weird morning where but I was just like, I just told her, I was like, I don't like being in me right now. Like my body hurts. My mind feels fucked up. Like I was just not enjoying it. And maybe I didn't, I think there's something about drop the narratives that you're holding and that, and we talked about diet and all that stuff. I know. And I'm like, yeah, there's a way to get through this, but like, we got to start.
But for the time being.
But the misery, you have to pay attention to it. Like where's this coming from? What's there? So I would hope that if the voice of giving up says nothing's ever going to change, I'd be like, I hope that changes. So start with there. Art-wise, I'd like to have a few more like books and shows under my belt. It's been weird. I've been an independent artist for the last 3 years, so I don't. I'll have finished my I'm training as a spiritual director. Mm-hmm. I'll have finished that, so hopefully those come together in a way that I'm not quite clear on right now. But I'd still like to have the same kind of trajectory, just 15 years of building and making that deeper. Probably mentoring a bit more.
Direct mentoring. You mentoring other people.
Yeah, I think I'm getting into it. Happens now a bit. I'm never one like, who do I need to mentor? But if people come to me and be like, can I ask you questions? Be like, let's meet up.
And 15 years from now, you can see yourself being in
maybe if people.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking.
I think I was always. Anytime when I was a kid, when I saw somebody that I was like, what are you doing? I would go and meet with them or be like, can I? This was when I was like a teenager. I remember like at camp, the speaker was great. And I was just like, can I sit with you at lunch and just ask you questions?
Yeah.
And I would just ask him about like, how'd you come into this? What are you doing? How do you develop your work and things like that? And I love that adults were like, yeah, I'll talk to you 15-year-old about this stuff.
Right.
And so when people ask me, I think I get some emails is like, I want to become an artist like you. How do I become an artist like you? Like, write back to me in 30 years. Like I got 30 years on you. What are you talking about? But if somebody's got like really specific questions of things, be like, I'm glad to tell you what I know.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, I don't know. I have ways of answering that, which is.
But you can see yourself mentoring.
Yeah, if there's anybody. I have an inner pushback, and I know you've developed. I think your creative curriculum is really great, but there's something in me that's just like, I don't know if I have anything to say about being a creative right now. I know I do, but I've seen a trend in like artists I like or whatever being like, here's my creative classes and stuff, and I've been taking notes on my creative process and what I think about being a creative, but I'm not ready to be like, I'm ready to teach a class. And maybe I should be. I mean, I don't know. I'm open to it. I just don't. I'm more like, no, I'm gonna keep going on stuff. I don't know. I don't know if I have anything to say right now about how to do it.
What's the world around you look like 15 years from now?
Oh, that is a great question.
What do you want to see happen? I mean, you are making work with a particular set of hopes, at least. Ways in which you want the people and the culture around you to change and be better. If you're successful, if it works, what's it look like?
In my small area of spiritual imagery.
Yes. Imaging the spiritual
which for
journey.
the most part, nobody gives a shit about.
Yet.
That there will be other women and men who will be like, not as like I meant something to people, not that, but they'll be like, your work inspired me to go, how am I translating my experience into artistic, like, because I get that now where people are like, I want to do, like, what you're doing is like, it resonates with me. I want to do something like that.
Right.
And I'll be like, yeah, your journey is to learn your voice and all of that, because it can't just look like mine. I know you're copying me now because that's how you learn. Is
that's the way you've seen it.
Mimic, and then you eventually evolve into what your own voice is. Yeah. So like, I'm okay if you mimic
inspiration
me.
First, imitation second, then you get to innovate.
Yeah, exactly. So I would hope that there'd be a more robust understanding of why we have creative work or art or imagery in our spiritual practices, that it's not the thing, it's just tied in with lots of things. Like, even like I spoke at this one arts conference, and most of what I said, because a lot of it becomes like, when will churches like honor what we do? And my little time I got to talk, I just said, they got a lot going on.
Yeah, man.
Like, this family's getting divorced and they're trying to figure that. This family doesn't know how to pay their bills and they're trying to help them out. This person came and was like, I don't have any food, and they're trying to figure that out. It's like, they're figuring out a lot. And I think we need to give them some grace if they didn't look over at the artist, be like, what's your emotional needs right now? You need me to validate your work because you don't have that validation inside of you. I'm not your spiritual, like, approving dad that you're looking for. The church can never be the, like, dad you want to feel proud of you. Like, stop looking for it to do that for you. You have to find it somewhere else. Your creator is already giving you that.
You'd like to see people who have the ability to do it and do it well give themselves in love to their community, church and otherwise, as opposed to with that emotional like kind of hook, or the switch where it's like, I'm going to do this, but I really need you to tell me that it's good.
When I worked at Ecclesia, I'd get people who'd be like, I want to serve the church with my art. And I got what they were saying. I'd let them know. I'd be like, that's awesome. And we totally want you to do that here. I want to let you know that we're not going to start here and we probably won't ever get there, but it's not going to look like it being on stage. Because that's what they said, like, the way what they've been formed is, it matters when it's finally on stage.
Yeah.
And I was like, your gifting and how you're going to use it, there's probably a better way, and it most likely won't look on, because what happens on stage is a very particular thing that happens like in an hour, and there's just only so much you can do.
Yeah.
So
but they're chasing the affirmation instead of actually trying to love.
Yeah. And going, and really, because they don't know from the place in which they stand in themselves, which is their, like, where the work is and stuff. And like, if I got that validation, I know I'd be a part of this. It's like, I'll help you walk through like what you're doing, what you want to do and where you want to get it to, but it's probably not going to look like there.
No.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think like all churches should have live painters. Live painting's weird. I don't think every church should have imagery, although I've started making like series of images that are very affordable to download. And
for particular seasons.
For particular seasons, being like, I know you don't have an in-house artist, but you can get this art series from me for pretty cheap.
Yep.
I even let people pay what they want for the first tier, and you would be it'd be really disappointing the amount of 1 cent donate. I at least make people pay a cent. You'd be really disappointed in the amount of 1 cent donations.
I wouldn't be surprised though.
From churches. Yeah. But then on the other side, but then I've had people write me and be like, thank you so much for just paying what you can. I have no budget. I've like one guy's in Hawaii and he's like, I have $25 to spend and I spent all of it on your stuff, but that's all I had. And thank you for letting me just give you all I had, which wasn't very much. I know it's more, you know, there's lots of things like that. It's like, great. So, yeah, I don't have any like, I don't know if I don't have any like vision goal as much as, I don't know. The culture around, I mean, I hope all the bullshit keeps falling away. And I hope,
Is there particular bullshit you want to see falling away?
Yeah. Patriarchal faith bullshit, power, religion as power, the shaming that can happen in religion, the viewing these ethics, these things like, I know, like homosexuality or abortion, or these are like kind of political touch points, but viewing those, those I view as just like, those are choices of privilege, or those are views of privilege
to be divided by them. Yeah.
You're like, you don't have a daughter who's thinking about getting an abortion and you're not in control of her. So you're just, a lot of people are like, and I think I'm pro-life, but I don't want to get into abortion conversation. I just think there's a lot of things where it's like, this doesn't affect you, so it's easy to stand from the outside and make decisions for other people.
Okay. Yeah.
Instead of being with them and going, fuck, it's complicated. This is really complicated. Or going, you're this certain way in the world. I don't understand that because I'm not that way, so I'm going to make this judgment on you, and I'm going to use my religion to make your life miserable. Like eventually when you just make people other, it leads to concentration camps.
You'd like to see people more connected as people.
For us, yeah. It can all go away. Like, maybe the best thing is like if every church building burnt down and then we had to figure out what it was really about. I don't know. In the ashes of in what we constructed, maybe we would find each other.
That's not a bad vision, particularly.
No, I think it's a little rough at the beginning. I think they covered it in Fight Club. So
they might have. Hey man, thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the At Sea podcast. You can learn more about Scott and his work by visiting ScottEricksonArt.com. Not just ScottErickson.com, but ScottEricksonArt.com. You can check out the book that he and I created together. You can pre-order that book by visiting 40daysprayerbook.com. That's the number 40, and then daysprayerbook.com. Music for this episode and for many of the At Sea episodes was created by Lee Rosevere. Now, if you want to support this podcast, which we would love for you to do and have you on the team, you can jump over to patreon.com and search my name, Justin McRoberts, or just go directly to Patreon. That's patreon.com/Justin McRoberts.